Hello, my lovelies. Thank you for joining me tonight. This is Paisley Wild, and we're off adventuring into the spaces between. Thank you for joining me here on YouTube. I really appreciate it. Please remember to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button to stay in touch with me and get alerts whenever I'm loading up a new video. This show will be split into two sections, just like the last one. If you have any questions, please send me an email or make a comment down below. So I do want to thank you again for joining me on my spiritual journey, and I hope you'll just keep learning with me. Tonight we're talking about the pagan calendar, and we're just going to start there because there's a lot of information, and we'll see what happens. So the calendar for the pagan calendar is quite short. There's only really 8 major holidays or Sabbats, and those are spread throughout the year, and they happen in different seasons. And now the role of the seasons, in the wheel of the year and the holidays, have different impact. So like during the winter time, it's a time of reflection and hibernation. You're looking inward toward, which is natural during the cold winter months when you're not outside. It's also a time which we can really just stop and take a look at our past and see, what's happened, what lessons can we learn from the past, and how can we apply them in the future. And we're also kind of starting to think a little bit about spring, planning what to do in spring and like what seeds to plant, that kind of thing. And then in spring, that brings new beginnings, growth, abundance, fertility. And this is the time to really set in motion any new goals or intentions or ideas that you really want to focus on throughout the rest of the year. This is when you begin. So as we come out of the cold winter and we've reflected and gone inward, spring really does beckon us back out to feel those warmer days and plant those new seeds, both literally and figuratively. Summer gives us the longest days of the year, which provides more hours for us to accomplish our tasks, as well as relax, as everything should now be in full bloom. It's also kind of a time to think about what you'd like to have come to completion or fruition in your life, and to free of those things that just aren't going to bring forth a harvest, so that negative baggage that we don't really need. And then in the fall or autumn, it's time to reap those benefits. It's a time of harvesting. We're really able to see the fruit of our labors. That's when so many people are canning or preserving. And you can really see what the bountifulness that happens when you nurture your life and your garden. And it's also time to evaluate and recognize the work and seeds that you started in the spring. And how did it bring forth fruit? What succeeded and what didn't? And by looking at the aspects in our life that bore that fruit and really brought success, then we can, hold those same ideas until the next year. And we can reflect on them again in the winter. So it's that whole wheel of the calendar. So as far as the calendar goes and those Sabbats, now the dates do vary a bit. With the solstices and the equinoxes, because not every year is the same, but they do tend to fall within the same 3 to 5 day range year after year. So Yule, or the winter equinox, is generally between December 20th and 23rd. Imbolc, or the promise of spring, is generally about February 22nd, or February 2nd, excuse me. Ostara, or the spring equinox, happens about March 19th through the 22nd. Beltane, or the Festival of Fire, in honor of Bridget, is May Day, or May 1st. And then Letha, or the summer solstice, is June 19th to 23rd. And Lunasada, or the first harvest, is about August 1st, that week, or that 3 days around August 1st. Then Mabon, or the autumn equinox, is September 21st through the 24th. And Samhain, or Halloween, which is New Year, is October 31st and November 1st. Last week we discussed some of the major tools involved with being a witch and a pagan. So tonight we're talking more about the calendar and, like I said, the celebration of the Sabbats. Now, the pagan calendar really does differ from the Julian calendar in that the first of the year is October 31st and November 1st. That's when the pagan calendar begins in the northern hemisphere. Now, in the southern hemisphere, it begins on May 1st, just reversed. So, Samhain is the first, or the new year, and that's when the harvest has been collected and fields are bare, the leaves have fallen, and the earth has gone dormant, and it's really a celebration of the cycle of death and rebirth. It's a great time to honor our ancestors and reconnect with those that have passed. I mean, anybody who's familiar with American traditions, you know that we kind of go crazy for Day of the Dead, and we've adopted that a bit from Mexico, of course, but it's a really big deal. And traditionally, the veil is thinnest at this time, and that's part of the reason why it's easier to connect with those that have passed. Now, some of the symbolism involves those rich fall colors that we see, the purples, the burgundies, the blacks, the browns, just the real earthy tones. Often we do see symbolism regarding death, like skulls or skeletons, grave rubbings, the scythe, ghosts, your traditional Halloween decorations. And occasionally we do see ancestor representations. That would be like photographs of those who have passed or mementos. There may be a straw man built. You have baskets of fall produce such as apples or pumpkins, squash, acorns, nuts. To be honest, if anybody during the fall season sees a cornucopia sitting as the centerpiece on a table, that's actually part of a pagan tradition. That's that basket that we would have on our altar or on our table as gifts for the gods and the goddesses. So just a little bit of our world being absorbed into mainstream world. Often there are herbs, select herbs burnt during offerings and rituals, like rosemary to remember our ancestors, or mugwort is often used for divination, and yew, which is a tree that's associated with mortality. As far as rituals go, we're celebrating the harvest and honoring those ancestors. It's a celebration of the horned god and the crone aspect of the goddess. And for families, it's a really great time to introduce children to their roots. Whether that's true relatives or representations of an ethnic background. It's just a really great time to explore where we come from. You can do this by creating a family tree or drawing things that represent the family. You could create an ancestor shrine, like have photos or heirlooms, treasures, different memorabilia that really show just the respect and the honoring of those who have passed before us. Then it's a big deal. There's a lot that we do during the Samhain season. Moving into winter, we start to look at Yule. This is generally around December 21st, like I said, in the northern hemisphere, June 22nd in the southern. And this is the winter solstice. So it's the longest night of the year, and it's kind of the final celebration of that death, and before the rebirth of spring. And there's an emphasis on renewal. It's also a time where the Oak King and the Holly King battle, and for supremacy of the land and the right to woo the goddess, and that's when the Oak King reigns and is in power or in control until midsummer or Letha. Now, for some traditions, they see or celebrate the Oak King and the Holly King as just a duality of the horned god, which personality is really going to take precedence for the 6 months. Now, with the new king occurring or being winning during the Yule season, that's where those New Year's resolutions come from. It's a celebration of the new king, shedding the old you or the old habits from the last 6 months to a year, and really embracing the new you from the new year. It's a time when we decorate our Yule altar. There's also, you could do symbolism of the season for your Yule altar or your Yule log. Some of those colors, excuse me, are dominant for Christmas time. Red, evergreen, white, gold. There's those bright, sparkly colors that we see so often during that time of year. Now, plants that we hold in greater reverence during this season are like mistletoe, which is a magical plant among many traditions, symbolism of fertility or peace or love. This is why you kiss your lover under the mistletoe. It's a symbol of love. There was, historically, there's been battles fought, and during the Yule season, opposing armies might meet for a truce or a period of peace under a ball of mistletoe. So it was just kind of a peaceful thing. Evergreen is associated with protection, prosperity, and a continuation of life and renewal. It's green year-round. It's always there. Holly is representative of the Holly King. Again, it's for protection and good luck. That's why there's sprigs of holly are often found on a Yule log or in bunches around for decoration. Ivy is another evergreen type plant. And it's a symbolism of healing and protection, cooperation, a binding of lovers together, fidelity, loyalty. That's why often when during a hand fasting, a crown of ivy is worn by both the bride and the groom. It's just to show that loyalty of staying together and the fidelity and the coming together. Birch is a symbol of rebirth and regeneration. It gives a little bit of extra oomph to new endeavors. So if you're doing any workings or rituals that require some sort of wood element, birch is a great one for that. It's also a symbol of creativity and fertility, healing and protection. And the reason why it's got such a big role, especially at Yule, is because the birch is often the tree that sprouts leaves first when spring comes. Let's see, the next would be an oak. Again, the oak king, holly king. So then oak is a symbol of endurance and power, of leadership. So if someone is considered mighty as an oak, that often means that they are very strong. They have this strong endurance, and they're natural leaders. So again, yew, is a tree that symbolizes immortality and longevity. And then the Yule log. So the Yule log could be any of these different trees, or if you want the symbolism of different woods, make sure you do some research to choose the one that's got the right intention to it. And then if you're burning it, you sprinkle it with some libations of mead or oil or salt. And then once fully burned, the ashes are spread throughout the home to protect from hostile spirits. Now, some traditions do not burn the Yule log completely. They save a part of it to be burned in later ceremonies to celebrate the end of winter. So it kind of depends on what your tradition is. Since I am eclectic, I try to draw from everything to see what's best for me. So this past winter, my family created a Yule log, and we used a piece of pine, and we affixed pine cones and holly and evergreen and acorns and ribbons and lights, and it was really awesome and pretty. And lo and behold, we had one of our acorns actually sprouted from our Yule log, so I have a little bitty oak sapling that I'll have to show you guys later. And it's just really cool that I have this really awesome symbol of the Oak King. Just spontaneously happened. So that Yule log, traditionally, it has been just a ginormous piece of wood. In some traditions or in historical times, it was a whole entire tree. And they would stick one end of the tree into the fireplace and then burn it throughout the celebration. And then that's when they would gather the ashes. But nowadays, we don't have the big giant hearths that they had of yesteryear. So the Yule log is very often just a centerpiece. And like we did with my family, different things are affixed to it for decoration to symbolize the year or what you've got going on. And that could be reused the following year or year after year, or you could do like some traditions and go ahead and burn it in a campfire at some point, either as a celebration of Yule or later in the year. Imbolc happens February 2nd in the northern hemisphere, August 1st in the southern, and it comes at the end of winter as spring and the planting season is just about to begin. So the snow is beginning to slowly melt, buds are starting to form on trees, and you can eat that feeling or energy of spring is becoming more prevalent. Now, Imbolc is often a celebration of Brigid. Now, she's the keeper of the sacred flame, the guardian of home and hearth, and just really celebrated during Imbolc because of this. One simple ritual that you might want to do at this time of year is spring cleaning. Yes, it's a pagan tradition, spring cleaning. And it's really to sweep out the negative energies or the negative spirits that have affected your home for the last year and getting rid of it. And it's just an easy visual way of just really cleansing yourself. Just do make sure that if your cleaning is a form of ritual, to remove anything or empty your vacuum and take the dirt that you've swept up and remove it from your residence or your home, and make sure you get rid of it, take it to the dump or throw it away, whatever. Because you don't want to leave that dirty, nasty energy in your home after you've already cleaned. That just kind of defeats the purpose. So let's make sure you go ahead and dispose of it. The next holiday is Ostara, which is the vernal or spring equinox, which is about May 1st in the north, and then in the south it's about September 21st. So it's a really, again, still a time to observe the fertility of the land. Those buds are really starting to come out, the leaves are really becoming more present, and it's really where a lot of the Easter traditions began. So Easter eggs are a sign of fertility. They've been used traditionally in many different cultures as a sign of spring or new beginnings. Even the Egyptians used the egg as a symbolism of Ra because it looked like an orb. And so just a lot of those Easter traditions really begin here. The bunny rabbit is representative of the new life, and also found in a lot of cultures to represent spring. And it's just, again, that celebration of new beginnings. Now, a craft that you might want to do with your children at this point would be a corn doll or perhaps a Brigid's cross, and that's where you weave straw together to form kind of a straw, and that could be a cross, and that can be made out of straw or reeds or pipe cleaners or anything that you can fold and weave together. Now, with Ostara, that's, sorry, we just went over Ostara, sorry, my bad. My coffee's kind of running out. Now, the next holiday that we come up to is Beltane, and that's May 1st about, or November 1st, and it's really the halfway point between spring and summer. It's just a really exciting time because spring is now in full bloom, and the longer, warmer days of summer are really rapidly approaching, and you can feel it. It's a time to just give gratitude and thanks to the fertility of spring. And the festivities often start on the eve of May 1st, and you may have big, beautiful bonfires, which is the fire is a representation of life, and then ending on May 1st with wearing flower crowns and dancing with the maypole. Beltane is really considered a time when the veil between the worlds is as thin as it is during Samhain, and so it's often just a very powerful and magical time, and it's just really time to set those intentions and what you really want to accomplish, and make sure you're dialed in for the rest of the year. All right, well, so that's going to be it for this particular section. It's the first 6 months, kind of a broad overview. You're going to have to join me again later because we're going to do the next 6 months and just go over it in a little bit more in depth. So I want to thank you, my friends, for joining me tonight. If you do have thoughts or ideas for future shows or any ideas that you'd like to share, please email me at wildpaisley@gmail.com, and that's WILDE Paisley, PAISLEY, at gmail.com. And if you're not, if you don't want to just listen to it, but you also want to interact, please make sure that you join me on Truth Frequency Radio at 11 p.m. Pacific time on Truth Frequency Radio. That's the spaces in between. And then for YouTube, please make sure you do hit that like and subscribe button, especially if you enjoyed the material. If you make sure you hit that bell, um, that way you get alerts whenever I add new material. And new material is not necessarily going to be associated with the radio show. It'll be just here on YouTube. So again, thanks for joining me. So merry meet, merry part, merry meet again. And please join me next time. And thanks for joining me, Paisley Wild, here in the spaces between. Thank you.